Recently, I was browsing Facebook Marketplace and I came across a pair of Shinsei Hyper third-party NES controllers that I had never heard of. So obviously, the first thing that I did was to go to YouTube and look for a review. But what would you say if I told you that there wasn't a single video on all of YouTube for these controllers?
I say you're a lying scumbag.
But it's true. I looked and looked, and there's not even a short about these controllers. So obviously, I had to make a video on them. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that these are rare or worth any more than the $10 a piece that I paid for them. It just means that nobody except for me thought this would be a good topic for a video. So in this video, I'm going to go over the Shinsei Hyper controller, and then I'm going to show you something interesting on the inside that originally caught my eye. And then I'm going to test it out and see if it's any good. So get ready to watch the best video on YouTube about these controllers, because, you know, it's the only one. So here's a close-up of the Shinsei Hyper controller. As you can see, both of these really aren't in the best condition. They have some scratches on them, and this back metal plate here where it says Shinsei 1988, made in Japan, both of them are pretty dented up. But other than that, not too bad. Very similar in color to the original NES controller, and the buttons here and the D-pad slightly orangier red. Got the turbo, and then you got the slow-mo. But what was interesting when I saw this listing, I was looking through the pictures that the guy had posted, and one of them really caught my eye. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So here's the board, and you can see that it says Hori on it. Now I messaged the guy and I said, hey, are these Hori controllers? And he was like, no, they're Shinsei. He was like, what's Hori? So he was not aware of Hori as a third-party manufacturer for Nintendo. If you're unfamiliar, Hori makes some really good third-party controllers that are officially licensed for Nintendo and I think some other companies as well. But mainly back in the day, they were one of the better third-party controllers that you could buy for Nintendo products. And I think the GameCube controller is still one of those that commands a lot of money. If you go on eBay, it's very sought after, and it was made in Japan only. So Hori is just one of those companies that makes almost a one-to-one, sometimes if not even better than actually Nintendo product. Now, what I'm guessing is what happened was Hori just sourced out this board for Shensei to use. Maybe that was pretty common back then. I really don't know exactly. I haven't found a whole lot of information on this, but I'm guessing that's basically what they did. The other more obvious thing that really got me interested in this controller is the shape of it. It just seemed to be very comfortable. And I'll go on record as saying I am not a fan of the shape of this. I mean, it's iconic. It's the gold standard. And if you want to, do speed runs, if you want to get the best scores because of accuracy, this is what you want to use. However, I just don't find this to be the most comfortable controller. Now, I did buy a grip for the original controller, but it didn't really help out that much. It's not adding a whole lot as far as grip to making this much more comfortable. This right here, your fingers are really just immediately, they just kind of go in these concave slots here, and it feels really good. Now, when you compare the size, you would think, well, this has got to be bigger. And honestly, it's actually shorter. Oh, I'd say about 1/4 of an inch, but it does have that half moon top there that just gives it that extra comfort. Now, when we compare it to my go-to, my normal controller that I use when I play the NES, the Dogbone's actually quite a bit bigger as far as length. And a lot of people complain about this, say it's too small. I think it's great. I think this is way better than the original, but then some people have issues with the buttons and the D-pad. But basically, I wanted something that might be an alternative to this one. Finally, if you compare the cord length of the original to the Shinsei, you're going to get about 6 inches more in length. So not a lot. It is not a reason to buy it because it's got 6 more inches, but just keep that in mind. It is a little bit longer if 6 more inches will actually make a difference for you.
Size matters not.
So when I got back in the car after purchasing these, I started to mess around with the D-pad and the buttons, and they felt a little bit mushy, so I started to second guess my purchase. But one thing to keep in mind is that the buttons, the D-pad, all this stuff right here, if you have an extra NES controller laying around, all of this can be swapped and put in here and make this controller even better than it currently is. But I did want to test it out just as a stock controller and play a few games and just see if it's any good and how does it compare to the Dogbone or the original. All right, one of the first games I'm going to be trying with this controller is Vice Project Doom. Love this game. It's got a lot of different gameplay styles in it. It's got like some Spy Hunter, some Contra. It's a great game. If you haven't played it, highly recommend it. So far, the buttons feel pretty good. D-pad isn't bad. Let's try out the turbo fire. All right, so obviously, yeah, with the turbo on here, this isn't really that fair. Turbo is really not fair, but it works. And all right, let's try something else. Speaking of Spy Hunter, I absolutely love this port on the NES. Yes, it's incredibly difficult, but it's a lot of fun. It's all about maintaining the right speed. I don't think it gets near enough credit. Probably because it's so fucking hard. Yeah, this thing is playing well. Get in the truck, get in the truck. Yeah. Okay, I've had enough. That was fun though. This thing played really well. I didn't notice hardly any difference at all from the original NES controller. All right, let's wrap this up. All right, guys, there you go. That is a quick look at the Shinsei Hyper controllers for the NES. I really think that these are some of the best third-party controllers that you can buy for the NES, in my opinion. I mean, when you combine the fact that they're just more comfortable to hold, when you got the turbo and you got the slow motion, which is great for, you know, a boss or a level that you're stuck on, and just the fact that it's got Hori components on the inside, I think that's kind of a winning combination. I mean, if you're out and about and you see one of these at a garage sale or a convention or a video game store and they're $10 or less, I think that's kind of the sweet spot for these. I would definitely pick them up because you could do a lot worse. I may even use these as my default NES controller just because I like the feel of it. I may even take one of my older NES controllers and swap the D-pad and the buttons. Might make it even a little bit better, but as is, it's still a very good controller. So what I want to know from you is, do you have one of these Shinsei controllers, or do you have another Shensei type controller that maybe has a joystick? Do you like them? Are they any good? Have you seen one of these before? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, if you enjoyed the video or you learned something, make sure you hit that thumbs up and turn on that notification bell so you know when I upload videos like this one. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.